Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. It's a little five after 11:30. Want to thank everybody here for braving the weather and our parking lot to join us today. And I'd like to welcome everybody online. I think we've got a pretty good online group as well. So welcome everyone. Quick introduction, those of you, I think I've seen a lot of you before. My name is David Newt. And I'm a automation specialist with the Reynolds company, and I have two of my colleagues and some other Rockwell folks with me. Today we have Mike Masterson, who I think everybody in this room probably knows, and then Brian McKeska. All three of us are Reynolds automation specialists, and Andrew's not in the building. So Zachary Rogan is a Rockwell technical consultant. So he's going to be with us today, and Luis Reynolds is what you guys know. He's also here today, provide some expertise. And Andrew Hochgren is Reynolds Company services specialist, so he's here today as well. So we like this to be an open forum. So if you have questions, please ask, and all of us will be available afterwards if you want to talk about anything specific. To do with your application or some technology. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. Today's topic is Studio 5000 version 32. So we'll cover some 31 stuff too as a recap, but most of today's focus is going to be on the latest version of Studio 5000 version 32. So as a recap, the Studio 5000 design environment, it's no longer just a PLC programmer anymore. It does a lot more than that. The architect environment, not widely used, but it's designed to assist you building your full integrated architecture system. You can create networks, HMI applications can start from there. It's a way of kind of broadening that scope of your design environment. Of course, Studio 5000 Logic Designer, that's the core of the product. That's where we do all of our programming and configuration. That's where we'll be spending most of our time today. But also we have the View Designer environment. So that's relatively new. We're on version 5 of our View Designer. And that View Designer environment programs are new Panel View 5000 HMIs. So we will talk a little bit about that today. The Panel View 5000 is a new hardware HMI system, and the programming is built into Studio 5000, as opposed to the previous Panel View used factory taught new machine. Panel View 5000 is a new product with the hardware and software. Also, application code manager tool. So we'll talk about that today. That's a way to assist, to reuse and quickly build projects. It's a very nice tool used by system integrators to quickly design or recreate projects that you've created. And then we have the Logic Emulate. A lot of you probably have used Emulate in the past. Emulate continues to be supported. We'll talk about that today. There's some new features with Emulate. New for version 32 is what we're calling our simulation interface. So that takes it a step further, provides integration to third-party softwares like Cape software and some others. So those are kind of the topics basically we'll talk about today. Before we start talking about 32, this is a quick version 31 recap. We'll talk about all these topics. Logic tag-based alarming, that's a big feature that we've added. Starting in version 31 with our high performance controllers supporting. So that's your 53As compact logics and your L8 or 55A compact control logics processors. We also went through kind of a modernization of the user interface with version 31 that continues. With 32, there's some new things there. Some safety instructions have been added for the kinetics drive, and application code managers have been expanded some.
How many people have been able to play around or migrate over to version 31 yet?
Okay, so
Imagine that question like 2 years ago to them, the entire group. None of that would.
so some highlights before, just a quick overview. We'll be talking about all of this today. So inside the Logic Designer, we've added a number of new 64-bit math support, alarming, some data expansions, and the simulation interface. The designer view software, we've added a number of controllers that the view designer software will be able to communicate with at once. So it was only a single HMI to single controller. With the new release, now you can take a single HMI and talk up to 4 controllers with the PAN V5000. So we'll talk about that. That HMI also supports the Logic's tag-based alarming. We're going to be talking a lot about links today. So if you have any questions about links, how it goes together, and what software links to use and what application. This is a good topic for today. We'll get into detail, and then finally, we've released a Control Flash Plus software. We're on version 2 of that today, so that can increase and somewhat automate your flashing activities with respect to controllers. So that's what we're going to be talking about in detail today. I'm going to hand it over to Louise to talk about some of the logic.
So for you guys that have installed version 31, you saw that the interface completely changed. So as far as how we interact with Logic's designer, so when we talked about it and we saw what David was putting in, we now have Studio 5000. There's a reason behind the name change that happened quite a bit a while ago. We have different applications that kind of fall into the same package. In the Logic's designer view, that entire thing got an overhaul as of version 31. The biggest thing and biggest takeaway that we had is we can now undock the windows, so we have multiple tabs, and if you had a dual monitor interface, you can put the Logics on one, all the tags on the other, and it just made it an easy interface for you to be able to go into it. Everything stayed for the same look and feel as far as where everything was, just all the icons changed. So if you're looking at it from a fresh perspective, everything was a little bit different. So for the most part, big things that you'll see, as of version 24, we did introduce the ability of being able to do the Logic's organizer. So that gives us the ability of doing a lot of library modifications inside of the Studio 5000 world, where we can copy and paste pieces of the code and any dependencies, the UDTs, the AOIs that existed. The big example we used to use is like if you have a boiler 1, you want to make a copy and make a boiler 2. All you got to do is just copy that over. All the tags that existed for it got moved over. That was something that they introduced in version 24. So in 31, a lot of things that were more of just the look and feel. What we're going to see on our side is now with 32, the difference here is going to be 64-bit math. So that is going to be an introduction that we're going to see coming forward. And this is at the controller level. So in most cases, a lot of the industries and all of the opportunities that we deal with from a compact logics, control logics, this isn't a big thing. But when we start looking at standards, what a lot of third-party organizations are starting to create as far as protocols and different interfaces, 64-bit math is going to be required. So we're essentially jumping on that bandwagon beforehand. If there's any simulation packages, that's going to help us in being able to interact with that side of it. So starting with version 32 going forward, that will be as part of the control. So what you will see from us is also going forward from a factory talk link side of it, we will start introducing the ability of being able to tie into this. Right now, this is going to be purely on the controller side. A couple other things, I'll talk about the alarms, so that we'll go into detail on that, function block, and a couple other items there. But just to go over again on the 64-bit math, one of the big things here is motion. Obviously, that isn't a big topic that we usually get involved with in this group. But what we'll see now is the ability of being able to go after unsigned and double. So one of the requirements that a lot of people now have is being able to do essentially a double flow. So this gives us that ability of looking at things. So if there's any requirements or anything that you've seen, whether it's a protocol or a third party, we'll look at that interface and being able to do that at 32 now. So how many people have played with the new alarming if you have moved to 31? Good. How many people know about the new alarming in version 31? Okay. So people on the phone, I got a couple of hands up. You guys can let us know. So what we've done is we introduced in version 31 with the L8 and the 5380, which we would consider our high performance architecture on the controller side of it. We introduced a new ability of being able to do alarming. So for everybody that is here, we still have the ALMAs, ALMDs. Those are the instruction-based alarms that existed all the way back to, I think, version 16. That still exists. That's at the rung level. It gives me down precision-wise to the rung, to the millisecond essential when it hits. And that's a push from the controller to the HMI. Then I also have my alarm and event side through Factory Talk View SC, where I can create up to 10,000 alarms per server, tie that into as many controllers as I want, and that's a pull method. Usually that's updated every second, every 2 seconds. It goes to the controller, sees if there's any alarms, and displays it on the screen for the operators to be able to interact with. You have the ability of being able to do handshakes in between that, so if you acknowledge from the HMI, it writes to the controller and does everything that it needs to. Now the ability that we have that only exists on the L8s and the 5380 is these logic tag-based alarms. What that does is it's a new, essentially periodic task that happens inside of the controller, and think of it as a spreadsheet. The same functionality that I had at the HMI level, where I can set up all my different alarms in kind of an alarm sheet format. I now scan my controller every 500 milliseconds. At that 500 millisecond interval, I see if there's any alarms that, if there's any alarms at that point, it pushes from the controller to the HMI, and I don't have to do anything at the HMI level. So this is either Factory Talk View SC or the new Panel View 5000 pack. So once that triggers, I can now mix and match. I have my critical alarms via my ALMD. I have my 500 millisecond alarms for standard. And if you guys remember the ALMDs, ALMAs, we would give you a hard limit and say, do not exceed more than this on a controller because issues can happen. And most of the time that was down at the 250 to 500 level. These newer systems, even though they're not as heavy as an ALMA, LMD when it comes to memory, they're a fraction of the memory usage required on those. Will still be, we're probably closer to the 1,000, 2,000 range of how many alarms we would want in a controller. And then for everything else, where we can go to the 10,000 level, that would still be on the HMI side. Because those were going to be your non-critical, your process-based alarms, a lot of the high temperature ranges where you just want that as an informational, we would still have that, and we can mix and match all day long. So what we do here, like I said, is now we have that built into the controller. I'm taking a little bit more memory, but it only exists as a version 31 and above. And again, it's a 500 millisecond scan rate on anything that's inside of it. What we've introduced, and one of the things that you'll see is inside of Studio 5000, there's a little alarm manager setup. I can import and export via Excel. So the same way that I can do the HMI side of it, I can export all of the alarms that I have triggered to give me all of the settings on it. So it's not only just the alarm, but it's what triggers the alarm, what am I doing with the alarm, what the messaging is, if there's any associated tags and I want to do it like a snapshot. All of that is built into the controller. So it's the same kind of format that I would see from an alarm and events on the HMI for the fact. So I can import and export. What I can also do is now nest my alarms. So as I create an AOI, as I create a UBT, I have the ability of creating all my high, low alarms and embedding that inside of one. So when I'm looking at this, I can easily see that I have 5 alarms associated with that one instrument. If I open that up, I can see all of my different patches. This is the exact same thing that I'm currently doing with my P alarms with the process outputs. Those are using the HMI-based alarms. This is a new format that I can now do this inside of control. But it's a quick interface. So the idea here is inside of code. I was hit the wrong button. Inside of the code side of it, I can now introduce logic in my either ladder code function block to be able to manage my entire structure. So again, if I'm looking at a boiler, I can see if any alarm triggers inside of my boiler routine. So the same way that you would normally do this from an HMI setting, I can now do as part of water. And I can do that dynamically and make changes on anything that I want to see. So some of the caveats, some of the things that you need to be aware of. I don't want you putting all of your alarms at the controller level. If you take anything away from what I'm saying right now, is don't automatically say, well, he said that you can put all your alarms inside of the LA controller and just be done with it. You have to worry about the memory. If you know anything that we've mentioned about the LA, communication is handled off of another core. So we moved it to a quad core system. All communication does not affect your LA processor, the scan time. So I am moving that off and it works perfectly. But what you have to be aware of is what I do from a process object library from Factory Talk View HMI. There's almost no overhead that happens at the controller level. These things are tiny. These new instruction set that we're doing here are still a fraction of what the ALMAs, ALMDs are, but it means they're still big. So if I add 100, if I add 1,000, if I add 2,000, you have to associate that with the amount of memory that you need in the controller. So if you were originally at an L82E, let's say, and I'm gonna throw 1,000 alarms on there might be a consideration that I have to move to an L33. It doesn't affect the CPU, it doesn't affect scan time, but I do have to affect how much memory I'm using in the control. So, again, just be aware of that. Anybody have any questions on the alarms? So just so you guys are aware, I have about 4 or 5 different customers that have already started using this. Again, you can do it with a 5380. You can also do it with the LA. Unfortunately, right now, because of the fact that we don't have redundancy on the LA, it is the only simplex. The majority of the groups that I have dealing with this right now are my system integrators or OEMs. But if you guys are looking at it, if it's something that you want to do, you are perfectly okay to mix and match. The only issue that you will run into is if you're trying to use a Panel View Plus 7. The Panel View Plus 7 does not subscribe to our alarm and event server, meaning that it has no ability of being able to grab the alarms out of the control. So this would be what we would tie in with Factory Talk View SE on the computer side of it, whether it's standalone or distributed DCS. So if you got the SCADA, if you got anything on there, we're perfectly okay. It will go back and think all the way down to version 9 of Factory Talk View SE. Realistically, we're going to be talking about that coming up soon. We got 11 coming out, I think at the end of this month, if it's not out already. And then V10 has been out for a while.
I think I get the baton now. Thanks, Luis. Okay, so, so what was so some new functions. So with version 32, there's been a kind of a refresh of the interface for function block diagram. Just by show of hands, who here programs Studio 5000 with the function block diagram? Anyone? Couple. So, this is kind of just a look and feel, but this is the old version, and it's got numbers and letters and things. And so what they decided to do to make it a little bit more user friendly for someone that may not have programmed the function block diagram, they put symbols and less verbiage, so you could quickly look and interpolate, understand what's going on. So this is the new look of the function block diagram interface in version 32. And again, this is for the high performance controllers only. So that's what you only see that if you're on the L8s and the 5380s. So some productivity enhancements. So we've added some online editing enhancements to the user-defined data type. So now with version 32, you can rename the tags online without having to stop the controller. If you design your UDT with some excess memory, the spare members are allocated while you're online to do that online change. So something that wasn't available before. It's available now in version 32. Yeah, so step forward, we're moving more online changes. That's always a good thing. Any questions on that topic? Keep going. So this was one I thought was a neat thing. If you've used 31, you may have noticed that 31 is a tabular kind of format. So your environment, you can open up many tabs. Well, before sometimes you may have 10 or 12 tabs open if you're jumping between programs or between the database, et cetera. So there's a right-click feature called close all but this. So you get to the point you've got 10 tabs, right-click, close all of them but this one. I thought that was brilliant. This is proof that they're listening to the customer right here. And then here, I was very excited about this. I was passionate about it. Anybody that's used the format like this. The other thing that we've added along with the function block is a little called wire jumps. So you can easily see which wire goes to what, which makes a lot of sense. That's a nice thing to have. Glad it's there now. The compare and merge tool. Has anybody used this in the past to compare two ACD files to see any differences? So what's been added with version 32 is now you can compare the encrypted content without actually seeing it. So before, the encrypted content was just a black box and you couldn't get into it. Well, with version 32 now, you can compare it. It'll tell you if there's a difference. It won't tell you what it is because it's encrypted, but at least it'll go in and do that check for you. That let you know if there's a difference. So that's a good plus. The other thing that's I think gone down the road that will be a big deal is the new interface with automation ML. And so this is a development kind of productivity increase. Essentially, what we're doing is integrating Studio 5000 with some design tools. The first design tool that was integrated or that was added was the ePlan. And I'm sure there's probably not a lot of folks that use ePlan. It's very popular in Europe, not so popular here. ePlan supports automation ML. So essentially what you can do is you can exchange data through XML between the two. So you can take a project in Logic Designer and import it into ePlan, and then all the hardware configuration will show up in a CAD type environment. So that's kind of where we're headed with this. The next slide, I was kind of interested to see, is anybody use AutoCAD Electrical? That's, I guess, I don't know a lot about AutoCAD. I think that's a module of sorts within AutoCAD. So we've added a data adapter to AutoCAD Electrical. So that does a similar thing in that there's a bidirectional exchange of data now between the Studio Design and AutoCAD, such that you can import, export into a design environment. So if you're building panels or you're using AutoCAD Electrical, that information is, instead of having to recreate it in your AutoCAD, it's available to you. So that's kind of what the automation ML interface does. Yeah, question. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Yes, that'll be, it's in a later slide.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a all-encompassing slide that shows all the tie-ins, everything, but the salt systems is on there.
Yeah, so what we're seeing right now is there's going to be two separate but similar paths. One is what we can do directly to Studio 5000, and the other one is going to be like Studio Architect. We'll have multiple ones to start off with. So all the automation ML stuff we'll see, like SolidWorks, we'll first hit that, and then eventually we'll start migrating over directly to the controllers. Yeah. Yeah, we got a pretty good slide coming up that will show a lot of different options.
I think I'm handing it over.
My favorite topic. Is everyone here familiar with PanelView 5000? Okay, has anyone used PanelView 5000 or View Designer? All right, I need someone to bite off on it this year
No, seriously, it is now, we're ready to say it's ready for prime time. If you're not familiar with it, if you open up your later versions of Studio 5000 after version 28, you'll see View Designer there. That's specifically for the Panel V5000 development. We actually have a demo running outside on the counter, and we've got a couple pieces of hardware around here too, in case anyone wants to borrow it. Uses vector graphics, and more importantly, it's the tightest integration we have with Studio 5000 or the control logics. Everything is native to it on the tag browsers. The limitations we have does not support third-party product. So if you need to run Modbus back to it, that's not available. It's not going to be available. This is strictly a logics-based HMI. It will be our most cost-effective one in the future for a standalone purpose-built HMI. We've got two versions of it. Okay, what we've done recently on it is there's two versions of it. 5510, which is the low-end version, which is a single controller tied to it, not class 1 to 2. It's not hazardous area. The 5310 is one controller, 5510 up to 4 controllers. Also, we can do a combination of up to both internal and controller tags and external tags for the alarms, up to 1,000 per controller. And setting up the tags is going to be a whole lot easier with this. The diagnostic page has already been created for you. The alarm page and the banners is already done and configured, ready to go. And more importantly, we have an auto log off function. If David was excited about his tiny little change in Studio 5000, I'm excited about auto log off. You can have it set up so it's tied to actual tags, where the policy is after someone touches it, it will turn off after 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. That can actually be set up into it now in a tag type situation. Anybody who has a small project where they're looking for a little HMI, I'm more than willing to work with Rockwell to see what we can do to get you exposed to it. So please see me or any of my counterparts afterwards if you think you have an application for it, because we really want people to start seeing it, because we think it will actually speed up your development time. It is a good product. The hardware is actually the same hardware as the Panel V Plus 7. Just to let you know. So it's a proven product and it's been out there a while. Let's see, who gets the productivity library? Oh, is already an application program?
And one thing for you guys to note on the 5000, just as we start kind of rolling that out, I appreciate the fact that you guys have been listening when we said don't buy this. Like Mike said, we're finally getting to a point where it's in play and it's done enough from adding data logs, adding storage connections, now start seeing, especially on newer systems. But in the, I think, summer time frame, we're going to be trying to set up some sessions where we'll have a lot of demo cases here. That will be one of them. So as we get closer to it, we'll let everybody know what we got to be able to play with and just kind of see, touch the feel on it. So once we do that, I urge you to kind of spend some time on that. We usually roll it out at Tech Eds and Automation Fairs, but this will be a time where we'll have it here locally.
We do have hardware here locally. If you have a couple days down and want to play around with it, just get with us and we'll give you the hardware to play. So moving on to application code manager. Anybody here use application code manager? No? Are you not familiar with it?
I take it back.
We've talked about it quite a bit. So it's the online Rockwell's solution to a online library repository for you to reuse your code that you're creating in your custom applications. So they've changed the subscription. It's subscription based, but they've changed it recently as well to be one set price. It used to be you had a library or a librarian
price and then a user price. Now it's just one, and you get to choose however many librarians you want, how many users you want. And so the librarian controls every aspect of the versioning and what the users can see. And so that's basically what it looks like. And I think I messed on this slide.
So the idea behind this as well is to speed up application design time, right? So as you guys are making pieces of code or making HMI screens or graphics or displays, and you're setting up the way that you like them, the way that you know that it's proven to work, you can save them here. You can kind of itemize them, and then as you're ready to deploy them, you can start dragging and dropping it. It'll start building your Studio 5000 program for you, with your HMI screens for you. It can link your Better Talk USE. It can start doing that. So if you, again, rapid deployment as we're starting to put these tools into use, it speeds up the engineering time.
And it's all about consistency in your code. So one person can pick up where another person left off and know exactly what's going on.
I was just gonna say,
Microsoft Teams kind of like in their office.
It's not as collaborative as Microsoft Teams would be, but it would be more akin to like a SharePoint site where you're pulling stuff.
So the easiest example for this would be like what you guys probably always done in the modular coding idea. Is you have a little spreadsheet or XML that you select a couple things, and it's creating that file format. And I'm staring at you guys, right? But from a system integrator and OEM, we all at some point would do this where instead of having to create everything manually inside Studio 5000, we would export it to an L5K file, grab the stuff that we wanted, copy and paste, and import it back in. This is now giving you a graphical interface of doing all of that in the background, so you don't have to manually do that. So as you start building it out, obviously we're pushing it with our library, but as you say, okay, I want 10 of these valves, all you're doing is you can either import and export just the Excel with the list of it, or you can just say copy and paste. And all of the backend portion of it, everything that you would normally do via that Excel is now done in the background, and you're setting all of your default settings.
So this actually is license, I mean, I'm trying to understand, this is the local machine on cloud or?
This would be on your local machine, and they'll kind of explain more licensing wise, but it is a free utility that you would run on your laptop. Windows 10, Windows 7. There is also an option where we can have this integrated as kind of a server setting, where all of your engineers can tie into the exact same database. And now they're using the exact same templates, the exact same library objects, so nobody has their own variation.
And so this is the release summary. We'll go over each of these in the next coming slides. So the biggest, or one big change is the implemented parent-child relationships. So now when you can tie things together in such a way when a user pulls down a child, it'll pull all the parent attributes with it. So the librarian, this is solely for the librarian to control. The users don't have to know what relationships exist because they're just going to be pulling it in, and it will automatically pull in the parent attributes with it. The librarian can also set rules on which versions of those parent or children that the users have access to. So if you're not ready to roll something out, but you have three librarians working on a certain item, you can restrict it to say, hey, everybody only has access to 2.0, 2.1 will be out, in a week or two when we're finished with it. They've also added tag-based alarm support. So we talked about tag-based alarms quite a bit recently. And so now this has been rolled into Application Code Manager. So where you can set a project up one way with tag-based alarms set to whatever standards you have. And every time it's pulled by the user, then it will be done the same way every time.
So these are the two libraries that Rockwell has built and published. The process objects library is probably one that y'all are already familiar with if you're already working with PlantPAX. And the machine builder library is another one. Both of these are available on the PCBC, the Product Compatibility and Download Center. But these can also be brought into application code managers. So rather than you having now a file structure where you're dragging and dropping the graphics or the objects and the AOIs that you want, you just download them into application code manager, and then from there start more easily navigating the structure within the GUI of that software and pulling in the pieces that you need into the developer project. And both of those are updated fairly regularly by Rocket. I'm sure you guys, you don't have to pick one and work with it, but it is not to say we keep coming out with new versions of object libraries or subversions pretty regularly.
Yeah, so just so you guys, again, it's focused on system integrators and OEM. That's kind of the main bulk of it. End users, once you have it, you can use this to manage your own system. But from a design point of view, the no charge light edition essentially means that you can go straight to our website, off the TCTC website, and just download it, and it works with the full version. What ends up happening is the database, it's a SQL Express database that sits right on your laptop. You can code everything using our library. So we are the content creators. You can create whatever application you see fit, compact logics, control logics, it's limited to one controller per application. And the database is local. So the only reason to get a subscription on it is one, I want to put this on a server and I want multiple people using the exact same database. At that point, it scales out and you buy a subscription license for each individual person that is using it at the same time. You got 5 engineers, but they only want to connect 2 at a time. You only need 2 licenses. And it's about $5 to $5.50 a pop. The other option is you want to create your own content. So you don't necessarily want to just use our library objects. So that we have a machine builder library and the process library. If you wanted to create your own, whether that's a subset of our own process library or you already have your own AOIs, you can bring in. At that point, you buy a subscription license also, and that allows you to create all the content. And if you guys remember this conversation that we've had in the past, we used to have the difference between a library creator and a library user, because it's not just one subscription license for anything that you're doing. So it is a yearly subscription, it is not part of your toolkit. So that is a big thing that you need to be aware of. But it also comes with support. So once you get that single library user and tie that in, you get support for that content creation. So if you guys have any questions, one of the things that we've been doing is providing you guys labs. So we have that cloud-based image that we keep talking about. We do have one assigned for just application code manager. We can spin that up as within the day if you need it. It comes with the lab, just like TechEd, just like Automation Fair. But if you download the software, I can get you the lab pretty easily and you'll have all the files that you need.
So for it's becoming more commonplace for every physical item in your facility or in your area, there is now becoming what is starting to be called a digital twin. You may have heard this quite a bit at the last Automation Fair. So this the slide I mentioned when you were talking about SolidWorks, and we had an AutoCAD question as well. So the top left corner, so SolidWorks, Installed Systems, Autodesk, we have tie-ins for that through other 3D modeling platforms through our Encompass partners, like Emulate 3D and Machineering. Hadn't heard of that one, but Emulate 3D is a new one. And we have tie-ins for a lot of other items as well. They're consistently working on this and trying to improve it so that any systems that you have and are working on will be replicated in the digital infrastructure that you have.
So one thing just to note, and I don't have information on it, so I can't share too much, but you guys probably all saw the notification we bought Emulate 3D. So we will now have that as part of our kind of tool set. I have no idea what that means from how you get it, how it ties in, what we're going to do with it. But over the next couple of months, probably summertime frame, just be aware of the fact that that is going to be kind of tied in to what we're doing. So as we start seeing all of this, and as we start seeing some of the tools that we're coming out with, that is will to play a part on getting and making sure that whole digital kind of ecosystem is part of that discussion.
So I have a question, all these green blocks that you guys have, what does that mean? Does it mean that you're going to change the protocol of communication? Does that mean that you're going to interface differently right now? I mean, I'm trying to.
Most of that means that we provide some way of synchronizing between that software package and our own. Whether that's like the automation ML is one thing that they're showing. It's a standard way of being able to communicate between two different packages. So like the ePlan, the AutoCAD, SolidWorks is just so that the same way that we export a CSV file and we give it to somebody else and they know that format, it's the same way inside of the code that we does. Anything that's gray currently means that something exists, but it's probably some third-party equipment, versus the green ones are things that we have inherent that will be either a paid piece that you can just add the interface to, or it would be something that's inherent inside of the system.
So for example, can you go to like the one advanced line one with software and the each level across that?
So I'll take the easier one, which is ECAD. So ePlan is something that we've had interface with a very conscious partner of ours. So they usually do all of the electrical line by line. The red line drawings, different things of that nature. What we did there is through Studio Architect, even back a couple of years, we make it so that you can take your ePlan file, import it directly into Studio Architect and do a synchronization so that if you make a change in Architect and say, okay, I'm going to change the tag of this temperature. If I change that on the IO point, then it goes back and writes back to ePlan and makes that change. And that is an interface that already exists as part of the software. All I have to do is tie the two pieces in. And the linchpin is I need to use Studio Architect. So now as we start building this out, some of that is now going to exist directly in Studio 5000. Some of it will exist in Studio Architect. There's just different pieces there, but it means in the green side of it, usually I don't have to pay anything extra. It already comes with the light. Anything that's in gray is an extra piece that I have to tie in.
Well, then having said that, just looking at the path that you talked about, for example, last year you guys did on that ID. Now, so that's like you guys want to basically fit out an ID given to guys who have going to. So with that interface.
So what we're doing there is, and granted, it's kind of like degrees of separation on it. The Studio 5000, IAB, Studio Architect, all one play next together. So it just depends on how we're doing the progression, but the idea there is I can start an IAB, I can move that over to Studio 5000. That interface now gives me a graphical representation of everything in there, and that can then synchronize with ePlan, and synchronize with a couple others, and I can also use that to start creating my ACD files inside of Studio 5000.
But would you go the other way around too? Like do you have ECAT to an ID that's out?
So the only thing that we don't have right now is something that will create the IAB, will just end up at Studio Architect. Because in IAB, it's got way too many little pieces. So we might have something down the road that just creates it, but right now, the Studio Architect is more than likely where we're gonna end up.
So yeah, we're seeing a lot of use of the digital twin type applications in co-development and co-engineering, right? So while the machine is physically being built, we're able to simulate and test and design in virtual real time, so that when it's time to actually physically deploy things, we're able to do fewer tests and have fewer errors. But simultaneously, we're also seeing, and if you look at on this bottom right corner, operator training software, right? So we're seeing a bigger rise in, hey, let's just clone all the controllers we have here, plug them into this simulator in a room somewhere that's designed to look like a control room, and this is where we'll do our operator training in a safe space that will operate and act like a real place, but there is no risk when they inevitably screw up. So we're seeing in a lot of those fronts, a lot of progress being made by people, again, to reduce design time and to reduce the onboarding speed and make things go faster.
So it says emulate, but really it's the tighter integration with the two main simulation software companies that are out. Cape Software, you may be more familiar with. They're up in the Woodlands. They're part of, I guess, Wood Dot now. Used to be Wood Group, Mustang Engineering.
They're at Park 10 now.
Or Park 10 now. Okay, used to be in the Woodlands. And so going with the digital twin aspect of it, this allows you, the simulation side of things allow you to basically perform a full FAT without much of the hardware because everything's being replicated digitally. And you can step through a lot of your requirements through the development process.
Moving forward, with version 32, we have developed and we deployed the factory talk updater. This is a little notification screen where you can, in the same way with Control Flash Plus, you can look and see what versions of firmware you have and what the latest on your computer is. We're doing now the same with versions of Rockwell's software. I feel this is a pretty straightforward tool. It's going to be super helpful when you deploy it on a machine to see, all right, exactly what do I have, what minor revisions do I have, where are they, how are they deployed. But this will help in keeping up to date. I think one of the biggest pieces of this is this far right column, the latest patch, right? So as we are all becoming more security conscious and security aware, understanding the value and the importance of making sure we have the most up-to-date patches which minimize our security risk, knowing how up-to-date you are on your patches, I think this will become a really valuable tool.
So will that require access to internet to update it, or is that a monthly download?
I do not know the answer to that.
For you to be able to get the updates of where the patch is, you'll have at least one computer that has touch screen in it. Outside of that, you can run it offline and tie it in, see what everything's there. But yeah, the benefit here is if you do have something, you can not touch it.
All right, fun and games with Factory Talk links. Before we dive into links per se, I want to just do a real quick run through of kind of what all is there and how does it talk. So starting with our Factory Talk software portfolio, the very top is all the Factory Talk software that we know and love, right? So we have our Factory Talk View, Historian, everything that I'm hoping that you guys are very familiar with. So the way our software all exists on computers and servers communicating, and how does it communicate with each other, with itself, with other pieces? Well, that would be the Factory Talk services. That would be the middle layer. That's kind of the backbone or the bones of the communication piece. And then as we start leaving these software pieces and going out into the real world devices, whether they are data servers, whether they're HMI servers, or whether they're OPC clients and servers, we then start going through these really three separate branches here on the bottom, whether it's out to Factory Talk USE, whether it's to our data server, the bottom two left ones both being a part of like the PAS server for Plant PAX, right? Or whether it's to an OPC connection to some database or some other content source somewhere else. So hopefully this kind of puts into perspective what goes where, because we're about to jump into some new security considerations and some new security protocols and things that are going to be affecting really each one of these different tiers or each different pieces of the Factory Talk family. Real quick, Factory Talk Links release 6.1 has just dropped, and we'll do a quick walkthrough of all of these features that come with it. We still have RS Links Classic. I think at version 6 of RS Links Classic is when Factory Talk Links dropped concurrently. Both will be coming with software for the next foreseeable future, with inevitably Factory Talk Links being our go-to communication driver in the future. So Factory Talk now has the ability to jump in and communicate directly with Plant Components Workbench. So whereas before you were only relegated to RS Links Classic, you can now do Factory Talk Links Classic, or excuse me, Factory Talk Links. So we see in this communication software selector, that one already existed in a form in Factory Talk, Studio 5000, where you could choose which driver you would want to use to browse your real world devices. We now have the same for this. All the same features that exist in Studio 5000 are now able to be ported over to Edge Components Workbench. So the features would be things like anchoring, things like searching by IP address, things like the ability to more quickly navigate and set favorites on devices that you've come across.
Just by show of hands, is everyone familiar with Connected Components Workbench, or do we need to explain what that is? I see a lot of some blank stares. The Connected Components Workbench is the programmer for the micro 800 PLCs. So that's the very small, lower cost, small PLC feed that Rockwell has in the offer. It also configures drives and other pieces of equipment. But it's separate, it's a separate configuration tool from the Studio 5000, which is why a lot of you probably haven't used it.
It is available for free online, so if you do want to go and download it and tool around and see how it works, you are more than welcome to. I think version 11 is the most recent version out. One of the new features with version 11 was the switch from they released essentially a new skin pack for it, meaning you could change it from how it looked as a kind of Microsoft, what is that, Visio looking software over to a very Studio 5000 look and feel, including changing a lot of the iconography of a lot of the graphical elements. So that was just a little aside on Factory Talk links for Connected Components Workbench. So with the release of Factory Talk Links 5.9, we had the ability to get this engineering data from the controller. So our Maximin engineering units, all that kind of more detailed tag data, we had the ability to pull, but it was at a query. And so requesting a heavy amount of that data all at once would cause slow screen refresh times, would cause some lag, essentially. With the release of 6.1, there was a lot of optimizations done to make that move more quickly. So if that was something that you were running into problems with and you were using Factory Talk Links 5.9, I would recommend upping to 6.1 and then trying again.
Have any of you guys used the extended tag properties in the controller? How many people before this knew the thing? Okay. Cool. So yeah, this is just something that came out as of 24, I think. So a lot of the times we do like engineering units, things that don't change very often. Instead of using memory for your controller, it's actually saved in non-volatile. So it doesn't take place of like your 2 meg controller, that's all hidden in the background. And now you can make it so you can interface with the HMI. So in most cases, what ends up happening is once you spin up the HMI, once you spin up your controller, the HMI at first scan, grabs all that information, sucks it into the HMI, shows it, and now you can also interface with it. But the Factory Talk USC, the Factory Talk from the panel view side, all of that, you can display that information. So now instead of being able to have to like manually type all that stuff in, it's part of the code. So, and it is saved in the control.
So a real quick, I guess, notification about this. This is for Factory Talk USE applications, meaning this is not for the Panel View Plus family. So just another thing to consider if you are trying to do this. Anybody still using PLC2? I was nervous. Congratulations, very proud of you guys. We moved away from.
I've only got 3 left.
All right, we'll get you in the next update. Anybody using PLC2? We now have a PLC2 array communications.
And if you do have to do this, shame on you.
Yeah. This only exists as it should be your very last ditch effort. This should be the last thing you do to that PLC2 before you rip it off the wall and put in something remotely more modern. But now it exists. Factory Talk Links dual service option. So as we're looking at our data server, Factory Talk Links or our data server, Links as our data server can be CPU intensive. We have optimized Factory Talk Links for multi-core computers. such that we now can do 2 data servers because they can split the cores on a multi-core computer, meaning we can now have more data coming into the single computer. This can reduce the number of VMs you may have to deploy, and it can reduce the load on the network by sharing all the data. Strongly recommend using the process system estimator tool to find out what your network traffic is going to be, how many tags you're going to have flowing back and forth, what your past server recommendations are going to look like based on what that tool outputs. But with the new update in Factory Talk Links, we now have the ability to consolidate some of our data servers. All right, so as we move into Factory Talk Security, or as we move into security, and Factory Talk Security is a piece of it, there's a handful of different things that we're going to be covering. Essentially, and the way it's going to be for the different channels of communication between different pieces, there will ultimately end up being a different securing element. So if we look at the screen here, in between these 4 workstations, these 4 computers in this environment, we're going to have IPsec tunneling, and that's going to be for workstation to workstation secure communications. As we go from a workstation via Factory Talk Links to my Logix L8 down here, we'll cover SIP security on Ethernet IP. As I'm going from Factory Talk up to the third-party OPC UA, or going on in a different one, that'll be a OPC UA security. And so I'll have to secure every branch for every different type of communication that we're doing in order to make sure that our data is high integrity, high availability, and is not compromised. So pulling that leftmost piece off from the controller through links to essentially the server system, this is going to be SIP security. SIP security is on the protocol layer. So we have the ODVA SIP protocol that everybody knows and loves. SIP security essentially will be a security layer appended to the back of that SIP protocol, which will allow for encrypted secure communication. As we're looking at this really shows on the diagram on the left, this really shows a couple different levels of management. Factory Talk Policy Manager will be kind of your architecture level security overview management tool with regards to the Rockwell hardware. SIP security will be the actual protocol on the wire itself. And so configuring which devices have security communications to which devices with SIP security will be performed in Factory Talk Policy Manager.
So in about 2 months, 2 or 3 months, we're going to do user groups specifically on SIP security, or what we're doing for SIP security. So we'll talk about the Factory Talk Policy Manager. We'll talk about the new EN4T that we've been mentioning. That'll be coming out. So once we get in that, we'll talk about how we do whitelisting, how we're doing the encryption. Just know going forward, especially as a 32 and your controllers, all of that being an option now in the controllers.
Moving over to IPsec, this is for workstation to workstation essentially communication. So as we see here, we have all of our workstations within our environment. In workstation 1 and workstation 2 have IPsec protected communications, meaning the packet at the packet layer of the Ethernet communication. We're doing inspection and we're doing encryption to make sure that every single piece of data on the wire is secure and encrypted, moving back and forth between the two. So we'll come out with more information about this because in the future with more white papers and kind of our recommended guidelines and documents and stuff. The nice thing about this is it uses a lot of the Microsoft standard security stuff because the IT organization and industry has been doing cybersecurity longer than we have, and so a lot of this is going to be borrowing and merging with a lot of standards that have already been developed for those types of environments. Lastly is Factory Talk Links Gateway. This is for OPC communications, whether it's OPC UA or DP. So, I'm sorry?
DA.
DA. Too many letters.
So this will all be tag-based licensed, as well as, I guess previously there were only 3. It was single node, OEM, and gateway for RSLinks Classic. For factory talk links gateway, I can't remember all of them. I know the lowest is basic, top is professional. I think there's a standard and enhanced, essentially. Enterprise.
Yeah, it was an enterprise. So it was all in a single box and it was all tag based. And I think the smallest one was, I think it was like 500, 2,000, and unlimited.
30, well, it was 2,000, 32,000, and then unlimited. And the unlimited is not necessarily truly unlimited. It's however far you can push your processor to go. And then when it starts to bog down, you need to have another server with another unlimited license. There's a couple other usability enhancements that they've made. So I would recommend, even if you're used to RSLinks Classic and you're dead set on using it, I'd give regular factory talk links a shot, just because some of the usability things they've added is the ability to auto import your drivers. So no longer will you have a little yellow circle when you're browsing through. It'll auto grab EDS files and your ability to copy and paste, essentially export your IP list and import an IP list. So if you're working on a system, you don't have all the hardware yet, but you know all your setup, you can import the IP list from Excel and have it in there ready to go and be ready when you go out the field and actually install the equipment.
So when we look at the diagram on this, right, we have our Logix controller down at the bottom. Going back to the very first overview slide of the Factory Talk portfolio, right, that's gonna be that bottom left corner here, SIP communication. This will go up to Factory Talk links and into the Factory Talk services, where it will then grab Factory Talk links gateway and come out OPC communications back out to whatever the end device is. And so we now have a way to get the data securely from a controller out to another data source or client we're really going to sell.
And just to take a step back, just so you guys remember, Factory Talk Links is now the rebranding of what was ours Enterprise. So when we start looking at that, looking at communication to the HMI is now Factory Talk Links. RSLinks Classic still exists, but what we're going to start seeing is Factory Talk Links taking over more and more. That is our kind of premier connection from the controller of the HMI to the actual hardware. So when we tie that in, the newer version at version 6 now made it so we can do OPC UA natively. So from an HMI point of view, if we're looking at Factory Talk USE, I can now bring in OPC UA data directly into the HMI as a function. So I have the option of being able to do the OPC EA, the OPC UA. The Factory Talk Links gateway now gives me the ability to be a OPC UA server and send data out somewhere else. So I can now, at the bottom end, tie into all my controllers, keep it SIP, keep it Ethernet IP to the HMI, keep it to that format, and now feed that information out via OPC UA to somebody else. So in most cases, if there's another SCADA, if there's some type of upper level system, or if we're looking at UA, typically that's I need to move from my business network through down to my control network, and that was like kind of the tie-in. I now have the ability of sending all of that data down. What we're doing now with this newer version is being able to do the encryption side of it, so we can integrate into the OPC UA security.
Question. What's the process of update rate?
So between our side of it, it's still the standard for gateway.
So which would be 250 seconds.
Yeah, we're looking at about 250 milliseconds at the fastest, because it's still Windows-based time. If the gateway, I have to look to see how fast we can get that whole.
But the limitation is still links at 250 milliseconds.
Yeah, because at that point, if we needed to go faster, we still have the softening option on third party, and that's a hardware-based solution. That might be something if we needed to do OPC UA at a, let's say 50 milliseconds, I think it would go down that route. But if we needed to do something at a standard Windows a route that we're able to pull from the HMI side of it, we end up using this.
I think we have covered this a little bit in talking about OPC, but with version 6 of Factory Talk, we now have a OPC UA connector. So as we're talking about security, we're talking about making sure that our communication is maintained and that we're maintaining the rigor of doing our cybersecurity hygiene. Within our Factory Talk security within Links, we now have a way to configure security for all these different features of it to do auditing and to do make sure that we understand what's going on. So as a part of securing on the protocol, securing on the network, the other piece is doing audits and making sure that those security settings that we set up are unchanged and are still good to go. I believe I passed to Mike.
Oh, go ahead.
All right.
Last slide.
Moving on, Control Flash Plus. Are you guys familiar with this? Has anybody used Control Flash Plus yet? Oh, guys, I highly recommend it. This one is super easy. So you guys use Control Flash then, right? The OG one, the dark blue screen with the 1990 Windows, you know. All right, so there's that one. And then there's this one. So what Control Flash does is you plug in and it brings up a RS Links, essentially client browser, and it'll go down and it'll find whatever you're plugged into. And then it'll go and it'll say, what version of firmware is this thing? What version of firmware do you have on your computer? And then there's a go button, and then there's a flash to and drop down menu. You can say flash to latest and just click that for everything and auto update everything to latest, or you can just pick a version of whatever you have on your computer. But no, in OG Control Flash, right? You just do one thing at a time, and you go get a cup of coffee, and then you go drop off some paperwork, and you check your mail, and then you come back, and it's done flashing, or it's failed, and you have to go do that routine again. In this one, you can flash multiple things at once. So we can flash a whole rack or a whole chassis of I/O cards all at once, right? So we plug it all up, we plug our network card in, put the controller in, put whatever you want in this thing, and then say flash every single one of these to latest. It will take care of flashing them in the order that doesn't brick them, right? So it's not gonna like halfway flash your controller and then start flashing the network card. We look both ways before we cross the street on that one. But it will go through it. It will start flashing every single device concurrently as best it can, and it will stack them up in an order of operations. But so you can now do multiple devices at once, dramatically speeding up all your firmware revision management. So I highly recommend this piece of software. This one is actually super easy and straightforward to use.
Best thing we talked about today.
So you have to.
As long as we can see if they are, even if you need to remove version, as long as you're able to see that network,
Yeah, the workflow for this is a little bit backwards, right? So in the old one, you like scroll through that tiny little window and you pick the like one part number that you want to update, and then scroll through and pick the revision number that you hope you got right, and then click go. This is backwards, where it does links browse first, shows you what everything it is, and then as long as you can see it in links, like Luis said, through whatever driver you have set up, then you can start flashing firmware to that device. With V2, one of the updates is a connector to the process for the PCDC, the Product Compatibility Download Center. So now we plug in, we run Control Flash Plus. Control Flash Plus goes out on links, browses what all is in existence, and then it says, hey, some of this stuff is kind of old. And it will show you from the PCDC, the lifecycle revision or the lifecycle status of that product, which we publish our lifecycle catalog online, so you can go and search by part number. But this will go and find it for you. And it'll say, hey, for all the part numbers of all the things that you have that I can see out on your RS links, some of these are old, and here's where they are. And here's some release notes, here's some updates, here's some documentation. So this starts to give you a lot of detail about what is going on as we're starting to do firmware revision management. So like I said, this will be coming in V2. This is not out yet, but everything else I discussed for the multi-flash, the super easy, the choose most recent firmware on computer, that's all right now and available. So this one I do highly recommend playing with it. You'll figure it out in a couple minutes and it will save you a ton of time.